All right, so what's going on, guys? So today we're gonna be checking out Filipino Peacekeepers. Get into it, man.
The Golan Heights is a land of ancient beauty and modern conflict. Rolling hills, scarred by trenches and old tanks, stretch toward a hazy horizon. The wind whispers through barbed wire, carrying tales of forgotten battles. Here, history is lived every day, tension hangs in the air, a silent witness to decades of hostility. This is a frontier where peace is fragile, guarded by those willing to stand between warring factions. The landscape is beautiful, yet foreboding, a reminder of dangers beneath the surface. For years, this has been a buffer zone, but the lines have blurred. The Syrian civil war spilled over, bringing new dangers and new players. The old rules vanished, and peacekeepers became targets in a conflict not their own. Every rock and ridge tells a story of violence and loss. Filipino soldiers serving under the UN flag found themselves in this strange and dangerous land. They brought duty and hope, but nothing could prepare them for the ordeal ahead. In this land of shadows, they were about to face their darkest hour. The stage was set for a test of endurance, faith, and courage. The blue helmet of the United Nations is a symbol of global commitment to peace. Worn by men and women from over 100 countries, these peacekeepers go to the world's most dangerous places. Their job monitors ceasefires, protects civilians, and help create conditions for peace. The Filipino contingent served proudly in the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force, or UNDOF, but the Golan Heights was growing unstable. The Syrian civil war raged just beyond the ceasefire line, spilling over into the supposed zone of separation. Anti-government rebels, including extremists, saw the UN not as neutral, but as obstacles. The blue helmets, once respected, were now viewed with suspicion and hostility. The mission, once quiet, was suddenly fraught with peril. Filipino soldiers manned outposts along the demarcation line, always on alert. They represented the Philippines on the world stage, but the chaos was a new challenge. Their primary weapon was the authority of the UN flag, but that was no longer enough. Rebels began to challenge the UN's presence directly, seeing peacekeepers as soft targets. The danger was at their gates, the tide was rising fast. The Filipino soldiers had to rely on training, discipline, and trust in one another. The storm was gathering, and they were right in its path.
Wow, that's kind of scary to
The
be
end
out
of
there,
August
thinking about that.
2014 was the tipping point. Syrian rebels, affiliated with the al-Nusra Front, launched a major offensive in the zone of separation. They overran a border crossing and targeted UN positions, aiming to drive out peacekeepers and seize their weapons. The peace of 40 years was shattered in hours. 45 Fijian peacekeepers were taken hostage, sending shockwaves through the UNDOF mission. For the Filipino contingents at positions 68 and 69, the news was grim. They were now isolated and surrounded. The rebels demanded surrender, threatening to kill them if they refused. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Filipinos faced a stark choice: surrender and risk captivity, or stand and fight. The UN command scrambled to negotiate, but on the ground, the decision was clear. Captain Nilo Ramones and Colonel Ezra Enriquez refused to surrender. Surrendering weapons would leave them defenseless and violate their mandate. They chose to hold their positions, defying the rebels' demands. The stage was set for a dramatic standoff. The Filipino peacekeepers prepared to make their stand. The inferno was at their doorstep, and the world was watching. Their courage would soon be put to the ultimate test.
Filipinos are tough people, man.
Position 68, Thunder Hill, became both fortress and prison for 40 Filipino soldiers. Surrounded on all sides, they were an island of blue helmets in a sea of militants. Enemy fighters moved in the trenches around them, black flags waving. Communication was sporadic, they were cut off from help. The siege became a battle of nerves, with rebels using psychological warfare and loudspeaker threats. Promises of safe passage were hollow. The soldiers had seen what happened to the Fijians. Inside, the Filipinos maintained
Filipinos ain't stupid. They're not stupid.
And manned their posts. The tension was suffocating. Every sound could signal an attack. Rebels jammed communications, deepening their isolation. The officers bore the weight of command, keeping morale high and projecting confidence. The world watched as news of the siege spread. Families in the Philippines prayed, and the government sought diplomatic solutions. But on Thunder Hill, reality was dust, heat, and the enemy's constant presence. The soldiers held their ground, knowing they couldn't hold out forever. They needed a lifeline, a way out of the trap. The siege tested their resolve, unity, and leadership. Every hour brought new uncertainty. Escape was becoming their only hope.
So they try to
As the
escape?
siege dragged on, the rebels escalated from threats to attacks. Mortar rounds and machine gun fire rained down on the Filipino positions. The Peacekeepers, now in a full-blown firefight, returned fire with discipline and precision. Under Captain Ramones, they executed their defensive plan, fighting with cool professionalism. The first major firefight lasted 7 hours, but the Filipinos held their lines and sustained no casualties. Their skill
that's
and
impressive.
fortifications proved they were not soft targets. They were warriors. This success boosted morale and showed the world Filipino courage. At position 69, another group of Filipinos was also surrounded and under attack. They refused to surrender and planned a daring breakout under cover of darkness. Soldiers at position 68 provided covering fire, risking their lives for their comrades. This selfless act was a turning point. After aiding their comrades' escape, the soldiers on Thunder Hill knew they had to move. Staying put was no longer viable. They planned their own breakout, a desperate dash for freedom. Darkness would be their shield, courage their guide. They had faced the fire and survived. Now they would walk through it to safety. The great escape was about to begin. The bravery of the Filipino peacekeepers echoed the legendary defense of Bataan in World War II. Outnumbered and cut off, Filipino and American soldiers once held out for months against overwhelming odds. That spirit, resilience, defiance, and never giving up, lives on in the Philippine Armed Forces. On Thunder Hill, the soldiers drew strength from this legacy. Surrender was not an option. Their honor and country were at stake. The decision to escape was a modern reflection of historical courage. Under cover of night, 40 soldiers slipped out, carrying weapons and equipment. They navigated hostile terrain, evading patrols and checkpoints. Every shadow was a threat, every sound a risk. This was not retreat, but a tactical withdrawal, defiance on their own terms. All 40 made it to safety, weapons in hand. They had not surrendered or been captured. Their actions sent a clear message. Filipino peacekeepers do
not surrender. Okay.
Were heard once more. The greatest escape on the Golan Heights is more than a tale of survival. It's a testament to the strength and resolve required of peacekeepers. The Filipino soldiers redefined the blue helmet, showing unshakable courage behind the symbol of neutrality. Their stand boosted the morale of the entire UNDOF mission and set a new precedent for UN troops under threat. Their actions likely saved them from the fate of the Fijian hostages. Their story became an inspiration for peacekeepers worldwide, a case study in courage and leadership. Back home, they were welcomed as heroes, their story a source of national pride. Medals were awarded, but their true legacy lives in the hearts of their countrymen. They became symbols of the modern Filipino warrior professional, disciplined and brave. Their story is now taught in military academies, inspiring future generations. The legacy of Thunder Hill is one of hope and unity. Even when trapped and surrounded, a determined few can prevail. The
That is a fact, man. That's a fact. The peacekeepers, Filipinos, are just strong-minded people, and they never surrender, bro. I think there's a saying: "Give me 1,000 Filipinos, and I'll take over the world." That's one of the greatest sayings I've ever heard. All right. Anyways, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Bye.